Our next speaker is Bina Ahmad. Bina is a social justice attorney who works at the Legal Aid Society here in New York City. She's worked with numerous animal rights and human rights organizations, including Al-Haq, which is a Palestinian human rights organization, the Norwegian Refugee Council, and the Food Empowerment Project. She's here to talk about constitutional rights.
So my name is Bina Ahmad. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I'm a public defender in Manhattan. I've also practiced international human rights law and animal rights law. So my training is, I normally title it the Radical Know Your Rights training. I've seen a lot of folks give Know Your Rights trainings, which I think are great, but I try to put a radical political spin on it, because it's not just a training on here are your rights, here's what you do when you encounter police and law enforcement. But I think how you encounter law enforcement, what is going to happen when you do, is greatly colored by the way you present yourself, the way your politics are, how you actually engage in your politics, and also, of course, the way that you are presenting in terms of your race, your gender identity, your citizenship status, all of those things, your physical abilities, the way that you present with your physical abilities, class, all of that. And I think that greatly colors the way that you are treated by law enforcement and the process with which you then go through the criminal justice system. So I'm going to jump right in, so I don't have a ton of time. But a lot of people are like, well, I want to get right into what do I do when I engage with law enforcement? Tell me my rights. What am I supposed to say? We should start out with the legal system, the courts, attorneys. I definitely echo what the previous speaker said, that victory in our movements and in our our communities is not going to come from lawyers. It's not going to come from the courts. It's going to come from movements, and it's not going to come from the criminal justice system. There is no justice in our criminal justice system, so we just need to start there. You're not going to get what you want from your court case. It's not going to end in some sort of feeling of, okay, even if I won my trial, that's not going to give you or make you whole after you've been put through the system, you've been arrested, you've been incarcerated. That justice and what we're looking for comes from our communities and our politics and how we live up to our standards and we support each other. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about, how I'm going to start, is even before we get out there and we start protesting, we start risking arrest, or we actually go through the system. Because the way that we actually keep ourselves safe, the way we actually protect ourselves when we encounter law enforcement, a lot of that, 90% of those risks, I want you to take care of beforehand. Majority of that is your politics and what you actually do to support each other and how you actually engage with law enforcement and how you actually protect each other. So collective safety and collective solidarity. So a lot of people are like, well, I haven't done anything wrong, or I can say this to law enforcement, or I can go out and do this. Why not? Because it's not just about you. It's not just about you. And so that's the main message that I want people to take away from this, is you have to de-center yourself in all of the work that we're doing. Because if you're in this work, and if you're in the protests, and if you're in the streets, and you're in the movement for yourself, then you're in it for the wrong reasons, right? Because then you're going to actually engage in things that are risky for other people and endanger people's lives with political and legal safety. So what am I talking about? So, for instance, you want to take care of your politics beforehand. What does that mean? What does take care of your politics actually mean? Well, what it means is we have to understand the role of law enforcement is not to keep us safe. And many communities and people already understand that. Black and brown communities who've been living in this country for centuries understand that already. The role of law enforcement is control, is to uphold white supremacist capitalism. That's what the role of law enforcement in prisons and police is. So I'm, of course, a police and prison abolitionist. That's what a lot of communities are fighting for, and that's what we need to understand. They're not here to keep us safe. They're here to keep some people safe, but they're not here to keep a larger community safe, and they're definitely not here to help us fight for animal liberation, for human liberation, for Black Lives Matter. That's not what they're here to do. So we need to understand that. So what does that mean? So it means that if you are a cisgendered white male and you present as such, it means that you can engage in a lot of risky behavior, and that's fine for you, but it means that it would endanger people like me, it would endanger your Black and brown colleagues, your undocumented colleagues, and it means that they didn't consent to those risks that you take, that you now are endangering the entire group when you go out and engage in protests, when you organize with folks, and now you have done things that endanger other folks that they didn't consent to. So you need to understand when you engage in protests and you do movement work, you have to center the most vulnerable folks, because those are the folks who are actually going to pay the price for risks that you take, okay? So that's what I'm talking about when I say we have to work on our politics, and that's what we have to actually center. So those are the folks we have to focus on protecting. So with that, I want to go into, well, what do you do, when we're supposed to actually sort of, when I say you take care of 90% of the things when you go out, before you go out and protest and actually organize or get involved politically. Well, what I want people to do is do things like prepare to actually encounter law enforcement. Well, what does that mean? So when I'm in arraignments and I'm picking up a case, it's the most devastating thing because the majority of my clients don't have the benefit of knowing that they're going to go out and probably get arrested that day, right? If you're going out and actually doing a protest, you're doing an action, you probably know I'm probably risking arrest. I'm going to likely encounter law enforcement, and that's an incredible benefit. It doesn't sound like a benefit, but you need to understand that it is a benefit because you're not just on your way to school or on your way to work and then snatched off the streets and you disappear and your family has no idea what happened to you. So if you have that benefit, you can prepare for it. So what does that mean? What would you want to take care of if you know that you might go into the system, you might be arrested and taken off the streets for 24 hours? So you'd want to memorize phone numbers, emergency contacts, people you can call because your phone is going to be taken from you. You want to know your health issues and carry that emergency medicine you might need if you're a diabetic. You want to have that on you. You want to know your employer's phone numbers that you can call them so you don't get fired because you don't just show up to work. You want to have people set up that they can pick up your kids from school so they're not taken by ECS when you don't pick them up that day. You want to clear any open warrants, for instance, if you have not returned to court for things that you just sort of forgot about, you didn't want to take care of because those escalate your charges, your risk, your holding time in the jail cells. So you want to take care of business before you go out and protest, before you engage in risky behavior that can actually encounter law enforcement. You want to not have anything on you that you don't want in the hands of the police. So if you do drugs, I don't care, just don't carry them on you. Because if you have your coke and you have your weed and you have your pipe and you have your whatever, they're going to find it. They're going to fully search you and then they're going to charge you with having them. Obviously, if you have weapons, please don't carry them. That's obviously going to also escalate risk for the entire group, right? Because now you're with the group. So they don't also know if the group knew that you had weapons, especially if you're in a car and they stop the car and they search you, they charge everybody in the car, even if the weapon or the drugs were just on you. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about collective safety and collective solidarity. You can just say, hey, I'm the only one that carries a gun. I'm the only one that smokes weed. It's just on me. Who cares? You get into my car, we get pulled over. I'm also charged, even if I didn't know you had the gun and you had the weed. That's one thing that I want people to really know, okay? Other things, be particularly careful if you or any of your colleagues are in a very vulnerable class, particularly in this administration's climate, like if they are undocumented or just not a citizen, even if they have lawful status. Any arrest is extremely risky for folks who are immigrants and not US citizens, even if they have recently become citizens, but they were not US-born citizens. Because if you're a US-born citizen, you have an incredibly privileged status because you can be stripped of your citizenship, even if you're naturalized through other lawful means. So, and then especially if you're going out and protesting, research the local laws. A lot of this is New York specific. I know people are coming from all over different jurisdictions. You can carry certain signs. You can't carry them on certain metal poles or wooden dowels, things of that nature. Knowing the local laws of protest. You need permits to be able to march in the streets where the roadway is, where the cars go. Even if the police just sort of naturally allow that because they're lazy that day, at any point, they can just say no more and arrest you all. If people have been driving and speeding and there's 10 other cars speeding with you and the police just pull you over, they just decided just to pull you over. They might have let all the other cars speed off, but they just decided to. It's their discretion to do that. The other thing, speaking of discretion, police have incredible power to basically do whatever they want, to exercise their discretion in any way that they want. So, whenever I tell you what your rights are, oftentimes people come up to me and be like, but they didn't do this, or they actually did this. I know. I'm in criminal court every day. I know. It's incredibly frustrating. So there's what the law says, and there's what actually happens on the streets or in court. And police have enormous power and enormous discretion to really kind of do what they want. So what I'm teaching you is not this sort of bulletproof shield, like if you say the magic words that I'm going to teach you, it's not like I am now completely bulletproof, I have my Superman shield on and you can't touch me, you can't do anything. It means it's to minimize the risk and the damage that can happen when you're arrested, and the damage you can do yourself, to your case and to your community, comrades around you when you're getting arrested. It doesn't mean that it's going to stop everything that happens or that it's going to completely prevent everything. It just means it's going to minimize the harm that you could do to yourself and to your movement. Because this is about collective solidarity and collective safety. And you're going to hear me say that again and again so people get that really, so you might be like, all right, Bina, it's enough. I'm going to say it like a million times. Because I'll say this a million times and then someone later will call me and tell me they got arrested and they told me, they talked to the cops all about their politics and movement. I need y'all to really listen to me now because we're in real dire times. So, all right. And the other thing that I neglected to mention, so also in our organizing spaces is practicing step up and step back, is listening to those who are expressing that their fears and their worries or their politics when you are actually organizing events or actually organizing going out to the streets or even just movement organizing. Because that's another thing, is when folks actually express their worries, it may come from a place where they have gone through the system, they have encountered law enforcement, and they have actually experienced state and police repression, and that needs to be centered. Because these experiences or this advice that people are giving to you or this worry that they're expressing, they actually come from a real life experience. And so this needs to be centered in our movements. For instance, I've been arrested in this city. I've been denied entry when I tried to go back to Palestine. I've lived and worked in Palestine, so in my bio, because, and I think we should bring these politics into this movement space. For me, fighting against, Israel as an apartheid state is very important, and those politics should be brought into this room. And that needs to be centered, because our intersectional politics need to be centered. When we dismiss that safety and that collective solidarity, that is where our movement politics break apart, and people's collective safety and solidarity gets broken apart. So what am I talking about then when I talk about, well, what do we do? We're centering people's politics, we're centering their safety, but I want to go out and I want to protest. So what am I supposed to do then? Well, what can I do? Well, so you technically, under the law, have the right to free speech in this country, right? Under the First Amendment. So what does that mean? So not all speech is protected, right? So the core of the First Amendment is political speech. So you have the right to engage in, I'm just turning on the timer as I'm trying to time myself. The core of the First Amendment is political speech. So you have the right to go out and engage in protests about an important political issue. Obviously, you're going to protest what's happening in this country. You protest the form of politics, an important political issue to you. Less protected speech is speech that's not deemed to be about politics or important political issues. So things that are not protected at all are like fighting words, defamation, things that you know to be false, statements about a private individual, things of that nature. So, think of your typical example of standing on your soapbox in your public, town square and talking about, obviously Trump the fascist, and obviously, tying his deportations of immigrants. Didn't just start with him, it goes back to the Clinton administration of targeting immigrants, and through Obama, deported 3 million immigrants. We have to bring that history back into this room. That is core of the First Amendment and core of our political speech. Demonstrations is another core example of engaging in political speech. And this is where then you can encounter law enforcement, right? So you have your civil rights to engage in political speech, and this is where it leads into the criminal realm, where you can encounter police contact. So what do you do then? And what are your rights when you encounter the police? Now again, when I teach you your rights, there are rights on the books, and then there's what actually happens. And I really need to keep emphasizing that, because people might come up to me and say, but I was just trying to protest on the sidewalk, and they told me I couldn't be here, and that's wrong, and they're not allowed to do that. I know. They're also not allowed to choke Black and brown individuals in New York to death and get away with it. So we also need to understand what we're talking about. Police have immense power and power to engage in incredible violence. And that's who you need to understand you're encountering, and who you're encountering, and who they can actually target the most with violence. So we need to remember that. Yeah, I get it. They might push you off the sidewalk, and it's frustrating, they're not supposed to. There's a ton of other things they're not supposed to do. So we have to center that. So when police come up to you on the street, if they try to talk to you, that's called the first conversation stage. Now the main rule when you encounter law enforcement, it's to minimize your contact with law enforcement. Now, why would I say minimize your contact? Why can't you just mouth off to them and talk to them about how messed up the fur industry is and how everyone should go vegan, and how animal liberation is something we should all embrace, which is something that we all agree with. The reason why is when you're probably not going to convince them, right? It's not really going to get them to go vegan, probably, and I don't really care about cops going vegan, because they also kill people on a regular basis, so it's not really on the spectrum of anti-oppression, right? It's not really going to help us, gain collective liberation. But it also gives law enforcement more information about you and your movements that you want them to have. It will never help you. It will never help you to talk to law enforcement or give them more information about you or your movements. And in fact, it endangers the people you work with when you give law enforcement more information. And I need to keep emphasizing that. So for instance, if law enforcement were to come up to me and ask me what seemed to be a benign question, excuse me, ma'am, can I talk to you for a second? Did you speak at this anti-fur conference, on Saturday, in Manhattan? And I say, well, yeah, I did. I'm vegan. I've been vegan for 20, 25 years. I'm an animal rights activist. I was invited by Rose. She's amazing. She put on this great conference, and she's vegan, and all these other activists met this great activist, there. And my friend Rachel was there, and she's awesome. She supported, an animal protection organization. What's the problem? Like, well, is Rachel somebody who is really radical? I'm like, yeah, she's got great radical politics. She came to support me, and we both also do, work against Israeli apartheid, and so just I'm not saying anything wrong, right? Did I say anything about illegal conduct? No. Did I say anything about engaging in violence? No. But what did I just do? I gave them information, not only about me, but about all of you, about Rose, about my politics, and about Rachel's politics, right? So I told them about Rachel's politics about animals, about Palestine, about where she was, when, with who. That's a lot of information that I gave them, right? So later they go up to Rachel and be like, hey, were you at that conference? And if out of fear, she's like, no, I wasn't there. I don't even know who Bina is. I wasn't. What has she just done? She lied to law enforcement. And that can be a crime. And it definitely is a crime if they're federal agents. And she faces several years in federal prison for doing that. That is why you don't want to give information to law enforcement. I didn't say anything wrong, politically, legally, and I didn't say that she committed a crime. I didn't say anything wrong. But I gave them a lot of information, and especially without Rachel's consent, or without your consent or Rose's consent. Collective safety, collective solidarity. Minimizing your contact with law enforcement. So what do you say? If they come up to you on the street, they're just like, hey, can I talk to you? Hey, where are you going? The first set of magic words that I'm going to teach you, that you need to say, and that you're all going to repeat after me. No one likes to take up the stage and move and talk, and I'm much more dynamic than standing in this. I feel like a preacher. I mean, this is where the preacher stands for. I'm Muslim. I'm sorry. I don't really spend much time in churches. So the first set of magic words is you're going to say. You can answer their basic questions. If they say, hey, where are you going? I'm going home, or I'm going down the street. Very minimal, right, sentences. I didn't start mouthing off. I didn't say a lot of information, right? Because if you're like me and you get nervous and you start saying, well, I'm going home, I live in Bushwick, the J train sucks. I don't know, I'm going to take a long time to get home. I mean, it's like with Como and everything, he really sucks. The J train is like, with Express is like 20 minutes every train. All that's true. I don't really need to give that information, right? I would love to vent to you guys about the J train because it's literally the bane of my existence in New York because of it. But I don't have to give that information. So I'm going home. What you say right after that, you don't wait to be dismissed because they'll be happy to have you stand there and talk, is you say, am I free to leave? It's your request, not only to leave, but also to check if you're actually having to stay and talk to them. Because you never actually have to talk to law enforcement ever. So it's your first set of magic words to see if this conversation stage with law enforcement is over. So, excuse me, ma'am, where are you going? I'm going home. Am I free to leave? Repeat after me. Am I free to leave? Everyone, one more time louder. Am I free to leave? Okay, if they say yes, calmly walk away. Please do not run. Because if you do run, that will escalate their suspicion. They will run after you, and it will quickly escalate to violence. And so, if they say no, for our purposes, it will make sense that they'll probably say no. So if they say no, now you're in what we call the detention phase. So now you have to stand there. You still don't have to talk. You never have to talk and give over information, especially if there's no lawyer with you, because it's just you and not an individual cop. You have to look at cops as representatives of the state, because that's what they are. People might have cops in their family, and they might be very nice. And you might have, family who works for, FBI or whatever. And they might be lovely people, but what they do in their job is they represent the state. So if they say no, now you want to check if you're in the detention phase. So right after they say no, you want to ask them then, well, are you detaining me? Because you want to actually check if you are now in the detention phase. So that's the next set of magic words is, are you detaining me? Repeat after me loudly, everybody. Are you detaining me? I feel like a teacher. Okay, perfect. So at that point, it would logically make sense that they would say yes, right? Because if you're not free to leave, then you're likely being detained. Now, cops, of course, they're trained, you have to remember, to interrogate people. They are trained to trick you, to get you to talk. They're trained to intimidate you. They are militarily trained. They're increasingly armed with military-grade weapons. They're trained to engage as an army. So, of course, they're also psychologically trained in how to intimidate people to get them to talk, right? And when you're scared, like, all of this might just go out the window, right? So it happens all the time. So they might try to mess with you, because it would make sense if they say, hey, you're not free to leave. And when you say, well, are you detaining me? It would make sense to say yes, because you're not free to leave. I've been stopped by the police where they, I was cop watching, and I, stopped them from questioning a group of Black teenagers, and I was like, you're not going to get away with this. So I went and stopped them, and I asked if they were teenagers free to leave, and they said, well, yeah, they're free to leave. And I was like, you guys can all go. You don't have to stand here and be questioned. It was really sweet. And all the kids were like, oh, that's awesome, lawyer. And I was like, oh, I love you guys. And I felt really great about it. I was like, oh, this is great. They were like cheering lawyer after me. It was like really weird, but also kind of like, this is really cool. This is why I became a lawyer. And so like I walked to the subway by myself, and the cops followed me in their car, and I didn't know. And then they stopped me again, and they zoomed up their car, almost like hit me. And so when I was about to go on the subway station, and then of course my heart's in my throat, and I've been a criminal defense lawyer forever. It's still terrifying. I'm a US-born citizen, so you can imagine for my clients who are not US-born citizens, don't speak English, and are not criminal defense lawyers, how terrifying it is. And they stopped me, and I was like, oh God, am I free to leave? And they were like, no. I was like, oh shit. And so, I'm sorry, you videotaped. And then I said, are you detaining me? And they said, no. Okay, so am I free to leave? They said, no. I was like, okay, so are you detaining me? They're like, no. I was like, oh, what the hell's going on? And we just did this, like, just going in like a circle for about 5 minutes. And so they just started like screaming at me, like, do you want me to detain you? I was like, I don't know what the answer is. I was like, are you detaining me? My voice was like 10 octaves higher. It was just like such a terrifying experience. And then they finally just let me go. And one of the things that you need to understand is like they just want to also provoke you to either do something or say something that's going to give them reason to escalate the encounter further. But if you stick to those magic words, you don't say anything else. Of course, your heart's in your throat, and I think my legs are like shaking as I'm walking up the subway steps. If you just stick to that, it could potentially de-escalate the situation where you can walk out safely. And that's the goal. So it would make sense for our situation though, that when you say, are you detaining me? They're gonna say yes. So at that point, you're now being detained. You wanna now start, then you wanna respond to them and say, I wish to remain silent. Now the reason why you wanna say that when you're in the detention phase is the purpose of a detention usually is to get more information from you. So remembering that story where they were like trying to mess with me, going back and forth and those questions, is that a detention is really to investigate, right? To get more information from you and to sort of just investigate the situation. Whatever they're investigating, if they're actually investigating some kind of crime they think was committed, or just investigating you, or just trying to mess with you to get you to do something to then justify an arrest. So you want to make clear, okay, I can't do anything. I clearly cannot fight you. Like, I mean, I'm 5 feet tall, what am I going to do? Also, legally, I cannot fight you. It's going to quickly escalate to violence. There's nothing that I can do. I'm clearly being detained. I have to stay here, but you're not going to get anything from me. Your detention is useless. I'm not going to talk. I'm not giving you any information about me, my community. I'm not giving you an excuse to arrest me, so I'm going to remain silent. I wish to remain silent. I will not give you information. So your detention, useless. Fine, detain me, we'll stand here and stare at each other. Okay. So next set of magic words. I wish to remain silent. Repeat after me. Remain silent. Okay, awesome. So from there, you want to then start to become your own reporter. You want to start looking around, and as hard as it is, right? Because you're like, what are we looking around? I'm like facing like 2 or 3 cops, and they're like 6 feet tall, and they have like guns, and it's like terrifying. I'm by myself. Try as much as you can to like calm everything as much as you can, and slow everything down, and just like look where you are. Like it might sound really simple, and you'd be like, what do you mean? Look where I am. Like, what street corner are you on? Are you close to a deli where you could look for surveillance video later and see what happens? Are there witnesses around you where you might know if it's your neighborhood? You're like, yeah, like the guy that hangs out outside the deli was there. We can find him as a witness later. You know, are you with friends? What friends stuck around and maybe saw what's happening and watched? Because those are witnesses me as your criminal defense attorney, I would love to go talk to later. Try and look at the cop's badge and see if you can actually see if they have a name or even just the badge number. If you can remember it, great. If you can, how many cops are there? Sometimes there's like cops, one cop is standing back, you're encountering one cop much closer. Those details are really critical. We would love to know that. Are you standing right in front of the cop car so that we could look for dash cam video that's on the dashboard? Stuff like that, as your attorney, is really valuable for me to know. Then, at this point in the detention phase is where a frisk and pat-down can come in. Now, people might think that pat-downs or stop and frisks have been deemed illegal in New York. It have not. The Center for Constitutional Rights brought a lawsuit that challenged the way that the NYPD conducted these frisks. They were, surprise, surprise, found to be racist and done completely unconstitutionally by the NYPD. But that doesn't mean that they cannot do them. It just means they cannot, which they have been, targeting black and brown people and stopping 700,000 black and brown men every year on the street for no reason other than they were black and brown. And so they have to do them in a different way, based on reasonable suspicion that some crime has been committed. So a pat-down is supposed to be, wait for it, the officer's safety, which feels to me like such a mockery. But it's for their safety, because when they stop someone, they claim, well, I'm afraid that they could have a weapon and it's for my safety that I have to make sure that they don't while I'm doing this whole encounter. So they are legally allowed, they have the power, not the right. Police have power, people have rights, right? The state does not have rights. States and police have power, people have rights. So police have the power to pat you down just on the outer reaches of your clothing to feel for hard metal objects that could be weapons. So they can't just go into your pocket and be like, oh, I feel a squishy dime bag, that's your crack, so now I'm gonna charge you with that. Because that cannot be a weapon. So they can pat you down for their safety to see if there's a weapon that you could pull out and potentially hurt them with. You do not have to, and you should not ever, consent to this search. You shouldn't be like, sure, go ahead. They might even say, do you have anything sharp on you that could hurt me? They might say that. You should not physically resist the search, so don't tense up and just pull away or back your hands off as much as it's uncomfortable. Physically comply. They say, put your arms out. They might not even tell you. They might just kind of knock your arms up and spread your legs. They might just push your legs apart. Physically comply, do not physically resist, because that can also quickly escalate to violence. But at the same time, you should say the next set of magic words, which is protecting your rights to deny consent to the search, and say, I do not consent to this search. Repeat after me. I do not consent to this search. It is extremely important that you say that, because if you say nothing, or if they say, hey, can I search you? Just say, sure. Or if they say, is there something sharp on you that could hurt me, and you're like, I might have a knife, or I pick up, I have a knife. You have consented to the search. Even if you say nothing. Even if you say nothing, silence is indeed consent to a search. So you have to reach the inner depths of your soul, out of your fear, and still find that voice to say, I do not consent to this search. Try to say it loud enough so that witnesses can hear if we need them to testify, okay? Now after this is where an arrest might come in. Or they might for whatever reason, say that they have reason to arrest you for whatever they are going to charge you with. I know it might be an illegal arrest. At this point, they might either say you're under arrest, they might just slap the cuffs on you. Now, hopefully people know what your Miranda rights are. They may read them to you now, they may not, they may read them to you later at the precinct. Your Miranda rights are, it's based on a Supreme Court case. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford one, the court will provide one for you. Those are incredibly sacred rights, and everyone knows them, and yet no one exercises them. And it is the most painful, devastating experience whenever I go into arraignments and I talk to clients, and everyone's like, I know my rights or whatever, and I know I have the right to remain silent, whatever. But then I get a whole written out statement, and they tell me, my clients will tell me, well, but the cops told me if I just write an apology, they'll let me go. Total lie. Police are legally allowed to lie to you to get you to talk. Police are legally allowed to lie to you to get you to talk. So whatever they tell you, they are not your lawyers, they're not your allies, they're not your friends, even if they're nice to you, and they can be more humane than others whenever they arrest you. Whether they read you those Miranda rights or not, remember, it never helps you to talk to the police, because even when my clients write out these apologies, they're still been brought to court and are charged with crimes, misdemeanors, or felonies. You absolutely must, if you forget everything that I just said in this whole training, find your voice and say immediately when you're arrested, I'm not talking without my lawyer. Repeat after me. I'm not talking without my lawyer. And then you have to stay silent. Because so think of it as, if people are Star Wars fans, I love Star Wars, so you would sort of inflate your force field, right? I'm not talking without my lawyer. It's this force field that you blow up where the police are not allowed, even though they will try, they're not supposed to, and they're not allowed to then try to re-interrogate you, meaning not allowed to then try to ask you questions again until your lawyer is present. They're not supposed to then wait a little while and be like, all right, now that you sat alone in your cell and you're really scared and lonely, let's try to talk to you again about what you did. They're not supposed to do that, even though they'll try, because you've got that force field up. But you can pop your own force field if you say, oh, I'm not talking about my lawyer, but let me just tell you that I didn't actually do anything, and that other guy did something, now you have started to talk. So when you voluntarily talk, that force field goes, whoop, and it comes down. But then if you do that, and you remember, you're like, oh, shit, I said not to do that, you can reinflate your force field and say, actually forget it, I'm not talking about my lawyer, and your force field goes back up. Okay? I feel like the force field is very good, because like all the Star Wars movies, the new ones are coming out. So just remember that force field, and you have to maintain that force field, because you have to not talk. But talking means talking about the facts of your case. You should still, when they question you about, well, where do you live, what's your phone number, your name and app, all that stuff, that's just basic, non-incriminating biographical information that they ask to book you for purposes of bail as well. That's stuff you can and should give over. But nothing about, so what did you do, what happened, nothing but the facts of what happened, who you know, nothing like that, okay? So I think I'm at 30 minutes. The final thing that I want to say is, I know I threw a lot at you guys, and everyone's just kind of like, your eyes are like, oh my God, and she said a lot of like political stuff too, that people probably have questions about. We can totally talk about that too, as we should, because this is a movement. But I'm going to give you guys some resources that I think are really important. I have a whole other part of this training that talks about undercover informants, agent provocateurs, that I think is very important, and this is where your politics and your solidarity comes in, because that is where you also keep yourself the most safe. Is when you have a tight movement, you listen to each other, you care about each other, you have tight politics, that keeps you safest from undercover informants and agent provocateurs. The safest, more than anything else. Not law enforcement, not being the most badass activist that gets the biggest social media hits. It's not about you, it's about collective solidarity and collective safety. So I think the best resources that you guys should go to that are very helpful. I have my own hour-long YouTube training on this stuff that you can Google. I'm on the steering committee for the US Campaign for Palestinian Rights. You can just Google my name and then USCPR. It's on YouTube, it's public. There are also good Know Your Rights pamphlets online. The Center for Constitutional Rights has an excellent one called If an Agent Knocks. You can download that booklet for free, in PDF. It's pretty long, but you should read it. In many different languages, Spanish, Arabic, Bengali, Urdu. You should definitely download it. You can request them for free, physical copies. There's a great website called Flex Your Rights, like Flex Your Muscle Rights. There's a YouTube channel, they also have a website. They have different videos that show interactions where actors play out how not to encounter, and how not to interact with law enforcement, and then how to do it right. And then there are also good, I think good movies just about how people have encountered agent provocateurs and what to do. Specifically, really good ones about Brandon Derby, what I think people probably know about, and you should, if you don't, you really should. So really good ones are Better This World, that one I think is on Netflix. The other one is Informant, just Informant. Not the one with Matt Damon, that's like an active one, but like the documentary. Those Better This World and Informant are about Brandon Derby. Those are very good. Of course, If a Tree Falls is about Danny McGowan, who's now out and lives here in New York. And then Terror, and the letter T, the first letter is in parentheses, but the whole word is terror. Those are all documentaries, and they are very good. I think people should watch them. I think it also just gets into how our politics need to be tight to protect yourself against agent provocateurs and informants, and the profile of how they engage becomes clear. So I think those are good resources. But if people have questions, I'm here for a few more minutes. I don't know if we have time to take questions, but there's a hand raised. Do we have time? I don't know if we do. Probably not. But I'll stick around if people want to just, pull me out, we can talk. Because also it's being recorded, so I don't want people to start saying something like, I did this thing once, and then it's like, I don't want you to confess your crime on video. So thank you guys. I know I speak at lightning speed. I had a lot of caffeine too. But I really appreciate everyone listening, and like the wide eyes too, and I hope it didn't depress you all. But I really appreciate everyone and all the activism and all the solidarity. So thank you so much. And thank you, Rose, so much.